In downtown Dallas, President Kennedy was shot today just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy. She cried, "Oh no." The motorcade sped on. A photographer said he saw blood on the president's head. It was believed 2 shots were fired. Keep tuned to your NBC station for the later news.
And very often you'll find a zipper hidden in the arm.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You'll excuse the fact that I'm out of breath, but about 10 or 15 minutes ago, a tragic thing, from all indications at this point, has happened in the city of Dallas. Let me quote to you this, and you'll excuse me if I am out of breath. A bulletin. This is from the United Press, from Dallas. President Kennedy and Governor John Connally have been cut down by assassins' bullets in downtown Dallas. They were riding in an open automobile when the shots were fired. The president, his limp body carried in the arms of his wife Jacqueline, has rushed to Parkland Hospital. And if you'll excuse me if I give some directions and we talk about what we're going to do here for the next few minutes, but Bobby, let's tape this, if you please, particularly the interview with the eyewitness people. It is being taped good. Here's a piece of copy that was rushed to me and was torn off from the United Press in Dallas. President Kennedy has been shot in Dallas, Texas. He was shot as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed the president. She cried, "Oh no," as the motorcade sped on. An Associated Press photographer, James Algens, 8LTGENS, reports he saw blood on the president's head. The AP man said he heard 2 shots but thought someone was shooting fireworks until he saw the blood on the president. He also said he saw no one with a gun. And I can't, yes, here it is. I think I can best explain it to you in my own words. We were about 100 yards. If you're familiar with Dallas, Houston Street is on top of what we call the underpass, and the road curves down and underneath the viaduct. Jerry Haynes and I were standing there, and we heard 1 shot, and then immediately thereafter another shot, and then a third a little bit later, and I said to Jerry, "My God, those were gunshots." And we ran over, and unfortunately, I'm afraid they were.
It's nothing new, but just
Is it a recap?
Yes.
This we have said. Excuse me 1 minute and let me. Quote, Clint Hill, a Secret Service agent. This is from the United Press. Clint Hill, a Secret Service agent assigned to Mrs. Kennedy, said he's dead as the president was lifted from the rear of the White House touring car. Mr. Kennedy was rushed to an emergency room, and I believe it's Parkland Hospital. Is it, Jack? You have nothing? Okay, Jack Drabont, one of our producers, walked in. Other White House officials were in doubt as the corridors of the hospital erupted in pandemonium. We have told you where the incident occurred. What is the name of that street?
Where he was
shot.
Well, I suppose it's a continuation of Elm as it goes down.
It must be, that goes on the underpass. He was slumped in the back seat of the car, face down. Connally lay on the floor of the rear seat. And also a few minutes ago, John, the newsman, I can't think of my name. No, John Allen, told me that he heard a report from one of the radios, and this is only a report, that there were 4 or 5 other people hit. I don't see how there could be, because I know there were only 3.
3 shots.
There were only 3 shots. Jer, where's your mic? I got something to say, but I might as well have you. Right.
Well, I almost didn't go over with you, Jay. We were going out to lunch at
I know.
12, and you said...
I asked Vicki to go over, too, and you had some other work to do, and also Norvell Slater and some of the other people. The time is 1 o'clock. I would guess that this happened. I asked you what time it was at 12:30, so I would guess that this happened about 25 minutes until 1 o'clock.
You and I were chatting about 12:30. Some little boys were standing around, and I'd signed some autographs as Mr. Peppermint.
Right.
They asked where Jingles the Dragon was, and I said he was in school. And the mother said, "Well, this is where
A day in Dallas, Texas.
we came to see the president."
Thank you, Jack. If any of the newsboys come in, or if there are any beat phones come in that we can have transferred here, and you better get Don Easterwood, who is our audio supervisor, to see if we can take them here and put them directly on the air.
All right.
Put them directly on the air. Representative Albert Thomas of Texas says he has been informed that both President Kennedy and Governor John Connally of Texas are still alive. Let me repeat that. This is a bulletin. Representative Albert Thomas of Texas says he has been informed that both President Kennedy and Governor John Connally of Texas are still alive. Thomas made his statement outside the emergency room in which both Kennedy and Connally are under treatment. He said he had been told the president is still alive, but is in very critical condition. We will be on the air here. I know our boys are developing film now to see if we have any film coverage. We are regrouping in the newsroom, and Bob, I would suggest as soon as you can that either you break one of these cameras or one of the other cameras and put it in the newsroom, and maybe a headlight on top of the camera, and let's move in the newsroom. Get an audio line set up there so that we can work directly out of there and find out exactly what's going on. We hope to God that this is true. I don't know when yes.
We have to get a tripod on one of the cameras. We can't get these in. So
I see. Okay, fine. Then we'll move in the newsroom. Representative Albert Thomas, and this I'll repeat again, Representative Albert Thomas of Texas says he has been informed that both President Kennedy and Governor John Connally of Texas are still alive. He made this statement outside the emergency room in which both Kennedy and Connally are under treatment. He said he had been told the president is still alive, but in very critical condition. North, what do you got?
From Congressman Jim Wright.
Same thing.
Well, let's read the whole thing here. Some of the Secret Service agents through the gunfire. That doesn't. Let's see. Some of the Secret Service agents thought the gunfire was from an automatic weapon fired to the right rear of the president's car, probably from a grassy knoll to which the police rushed. And that was confirmed a few minutes ago by Mr. and Mrs. Nunley, who were eyewitnesses to this event. And we will have them back a few minutes later in case some of you are late tuning in to our program. We would like for you to hear. Gee, I'm so.
In other words, they fired into the car that came down.
And these people were in the line of fire.
The call has been sent out.
Congressman Jim Wright of Fort Worth said both Kennedy and Connally were seriously wounded but still alive. A call has been sent out from some of the top surgical specialists in Dallas, and a call also went out for a priest.
It's unusual, the reaction you get when you see someone, well, of course, like the president, such a political figure. It's as almost, well, there they were in front of you and I, and it seems to me that the president looked directly, because we were applauding, yes, directly, I'd say at you probably, because a little taller than I am, and there he was, and he waved at you, and then they rounded the corner, and just a few seconds later we heard the shots.
Let's turn the mic on. I can't hear you, Johnny. What do you want? You want me to move back a little bit? Is it all right now? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the newsroom of our radio and television station. As you can see, most of the boys are out. Bert? Let's see. Let's get reorganized here. Grab that cable over there. We're on the air, Bert, and let's talk to you just a minute here. Is this all right? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the chief cameraman and assistant news director of WFAA Television. This is Bert Shipp. Bert, we have brought the people pretty much up to date. Would you tell them exactly what you know as of this point?
Well, Jay, I was standing at the trademark waiting his arrival there. All of a sudden, we saw them approaching. They didn't slow down. As a matter of fact, they were going 70, 80 miles an hour past us. Everybody was unknowingly, didn't know what happened there at the trademark. And then I jumped in a police car and went to Parkland. When I got there, I found that nobody knew too much about where he was hit, but they knew that the president was shot in the head. This is what I've been told now, Jay. The president was shot in the head. Connally was shot in the chest. Both of them are still alive when I left the hospital.
Do you have some film?
And, yeah, I have film at the hospital.
You get the film and see if you can get it developed real quick.
Yeah,
and we'll
I will.
Put it on the air
and
run through.
one quote we got out there was Yarborough said the scene was too gruesome to describe.
I know.
And I've spent most of my time, so I'll get the film ready now.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring you up to date. Jerry Haynes and I were within about 100 yards of where the president was shot this afternoon on the grassy knoll there. And you will understand if we repeat ourselves, it's for the benefit of the people who have tuned in late. We are presently televising over WFAA television from our newsroom all that we know as of this moment. And as you can imagine, some of the stories that you will hear are not factual. The story that I told a few minutes ago about we heard that 6 or 8 people were wounded. This is not true because we only heard 3 shots, and Jerry and I were witnesses.
We interrupt this program to bring you further details on the shooting of President Kennedy. After the shots were fired and the president was seen to slump over and Governor Connolly was hit, the motorcade sped on toward the hospital. It took them perhaps 5 minutes to reach the ambulance entrance of the hospitals. Reporters there say the president was lying flat on his face in the car. A man and woman were seen scrambling on the upper level of a walkway overlooking the underpass from which they believe the shots were fired. Lawrence O'Brien, who is the presidential aide, said he had no information on whether the president still was alive. There are fears that perhaps the shots might have been fatal. There are no details as yet. Mrs. Kennedy, who cried out when the shots were fired, blood was seen on the president's face, was weeping and trying to hold up her husband's head, even when reporters first reached the car. Governor Connolly of Texas was wounded. He received shots about the body. He, too, fell over. He also was raced to the same hospital.
The president and the governor have both been taken to Parkland Hospital about a half an hour ago, and they are still alive. The president is in very critical condition, and a Roman Catholic priest has been called in. Also, every specialist in Dallas and every specialist in the country, of course, will be alerted to be there. The president is in the emergency room, and the governor is also being attended there.
Don. Go ahead, Don. Read what I read. We can take
it. Bill Lord in Dallas tells us that they also have several witnesses down there who witnessed the tragedy this afternoon when President Kennedy and Governor Connolly were cut down by assassin's bullets in the famous bubble car of the president's as they toured Dallas on the way to a supermarket where the president was to be speaking. Mr. Kennedy, here is a late reassuring note from Dallas. Mr. President Kennedy, according to a member of his staff, is still alive.
Here's a report from Ron Cochran.
And now here is a report from Ron Cochran.
Thank you very much, Don. I had just returned from lunch where I was called and informed of the tragedy involving President Kennedy. I'm sure that millions of Americans... You can see there's a little confusion here in our studio. I have just returned from lunch. I was called at a restaurant here in New York. Advised of the tragedy involving President Kennedy. He was, as you probably know by now, shot along with the governor of Texas in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas, by unknown assailants. So far as we know at the present time, they have not been captured. Now, I'm going to start at the beginning and give you as much information as we have, which, unfortunately, at this time, is not very much. President Kennedy has been shot, as I said, by an unknown assassin in Dallas. He's in a Dallas hospital. The latest unconfirmed report from the emergency room is that he is still alive. Texas Governor John Connolly also was hit by the bullets, probably fired by the same gun. We do not know, however, whether it was one bullet or two or more. The two men were riding together in a parade through downtown Dallas. They were in the president's open limousine and were cut down apparently simultaneously, possibly by the same bullet. The president's wife was beside him in the car, and she fell on her knees beside him at the time.
Where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special bulletin from ABC Radio. Here is a special bulletin from Dallas, Texas. 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade today in downtown Dallas, Texas. This is ABC Radio. To repeat, in Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade today. The president now making a 2-day speaking tour of Texas. We're going to stand by for more details on the incident in Dallas. Stay tuned to your ABC station for further details.
This is the nation station, WLW in Cincinnati, your Clear Channel service. Now to Dogpatch, USA, and before we get the proceedings underway, we'll have to stand by here just a moment. There may be something happening. Yes, there is. There's a bulletin just handed me from Dallas, Texas. An unknown sniper fired 3 shots at President Kennedy. This is in connection with President Kennedy, who is now touring Texas, as you know. I'll tell you exactly how this reads. Dallas, an unknown sniper fired 3 shots at, and then there are 5 letters, PMOUX, then a flash. Kennedy's name is misspelled, flash again, and at the bottom of this headline it says, Kennedy seriously wounded. We will, of course, be awaiting further details on this story, so please stand by. This report just in from Dallas, Texas, an unknown sniper firing 3 shots, evidently at the presidential party while they were touring Texas. At the bottom of this, it says, Mr. Kennedy has been seriously wounded. We will, of course, bring you details as they are received. And in the meantime, we'll go to Dogpatch. This is the overture to Little Abner, Lehman Engel and Orchestra.
Shot. Who? Kennedy. President? Yeah.
Here is a bulletin from the WLW Comex newsroom. A late bulletin from Dallas where 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade today in downtown Dallas. No casualties reported at first. However, the latest flash indicates President Kennedy was seriously wounded, perhaps fatally, by an assassin's bullet. Now, that's all the information we have. A bulletin, a sniper apparently seriously wounded President Kennedy in downtown Dallas today, perhaps fatally. We'll keep you posted as the news comes into the WLW newsroom.
Your straight line to reliable reporting, WBAP Fort Worth, where the news comes first.
Here is a bulletin from Associated Press and the WBAP newsroom. President Kennedy may have been shot in Dallas. Stay tuned to WBAP 820 for the latest on this tragic event.
This is a 30-second hotline bulletin talk-up. Just 25 seconds from now, we'll bring you a hotline bulletin dealing with the president. Several shots were fired near the president in Dallas. A hotline bulletin coming to you in 15 seconds. Stand by all NBC stations. A hotline bulletin in 10 seconds. A hotline bulletin in 5 seconds. This is an NBC News bulletin. Shots were fired near President Kennedy in Dallas. Here is a report from Robert McNeil, NBC News, with the presidential party in Dallas.
Several shots were fired as President Kennedy's motorcade passed through downtown Dallas. Crowds screamed and lay down on the grass. As the motorcade went by, police broke away and began chasing an unknown gunman across some railroad tracks. It was not known if the shots were aimed at the president. Repeat, it is not known if the shots were aimed at the president. This is Robert McNeil, NBC News in Dallas, Texas.
And here is a flash from the Associated Press in Dallas. The Associated Press reports that the president was seriously wounded. This is not confirmed. This is a flash. Repeat, this is a flash from the Associated Press in Dallas. They report that the president was seriously wounded by an assassin's bullets. This is an unconfirmed report from the Associated Press. I repeat, the Associated Press reports from Dallas that President Kennedy was seriously wounded by assassin's bullets in Dallas. This has been a hotline bulletin report from NBC News. Stand by for later developments as they become available.
When is the best time to trim young maple trees?
Floyd, I have something rather important from the WTIC newsroom in the form of a bulletin. President Kennedy is reported to have been wounded by an assassin in Dallas, Texas. There are no further details available at this time. We repeat, President Kennedy has been wounded by an assassin in Dallas, Texas. We will have further details as received. I'm sure everybody joins us in deploring this regretful news.
I should think
But
so.
we'll bring details as soon as we possibly can.
We certainly will. We'll stay right on top of that. All right, let's see if we can continue on with Mike Line here while awaiting any more news from our newsroom. Hello?
Oh, golly, isn't that awful?
It certainly is.
Well, I got the recipe. This is Roz Fishman.
Yes, right. Okay.
Oh, my. That just took my breath away.
Did ours, too.
So.
Well, one package, it's with the German sweet chocolate.
Yes, yes.
One package of the German sweet chocolate.
German sweet chocolate.
Oh, I can't get my breath. My goodness. 1/2 cup butter or margarine.
Cup butter. Okay.
1/2 cup boiling water.
1/2 cup boiling water.
2 cups of sugar.
2 cups of sugar. Will you hold it just a minute, Roz?
Sure.
We have something.
Here are further details from the WTIC newsroom. President Kennedy and Governor John B. Connally of Texas were cut down by an assassin's bullets as they toured downtown Dallas in an open automobile today. The president, his limp body cradled in the arms of his wife, was rushed to Parkland Hospital. We will give you further details as received. Well, this rather changes the complexion of many, many things at this time, and it looks as if we have two national victims here, the governor and the president, at this first reading. This is a very regretful thing, and the kind of news which I'm afraid is a little bit more than I care to handle, but we've got to be on the job anyway. We'll continue along, Floyd.
Oh, Roz, you're right in the middle of a terrible thing here. Perhaps we'd be best to just keep right on going as best we can, and we'll stay on top of the news as best we can here.
I don't feel like it. Can I?
Yes, all right. I understand it. I think that's smart. Okay. But give us a call when you can.
Yeah, I will.
All right. Bye.
Well, this has got to be the worst. We've had a good spirit here, but our responsibility here is to bring you information as soon as we can. Now, we don't want anyone to get the wrong idea on this. At the moment, it's a very unfortunate and tragic historical circumstance that the president, along with Governor John B. Connally of Texas, were cut down by assassins' bullets as they toured down Dallas in an open automobile today. We're waiting for momentary news, and we're going to try to bring you
all right, let's go to NBC.
More information. Oh, good. Excellent.
Oh, well, in just a moment,
yes, now,
we will go to NBC for later news on the happening at Dallas.
You can understand our confusion at this point.
So stay with us, and in just a moment, I'm sure NBC will have more details on the assassin's attempt on President Kennedy in Dallas earlier this afternoon.
And entering the scene here, we have another wrap-up. And how about that one, Floyd?
Well, this is from AP. The first one was from United Press International. When the president was shot, Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed him. She cried, "Oh, no." The Secret Service ordered the motorcade to speed on to a nearby Parkland Hospital. Associated Press reporter Jack Bell says the president and Connally were shot as the motorcade entered a triple underpass, which we said earlier. And something even further. A bulletin. Representative Albert Thomas of Texas says he has been informed that both President Kennedy and Governor John Connally of Texas are still alive. Well, that's the first heartening news, if you can call it that. At least this has been said. They are both still alive.
See you Monday on Mike Line.
This is WTIC, AM and FM, Hartford. The time now is 2 o'clock.
This is NBC News. Here is Peter Hackis in Washington.
President Kennedy has been shot. As of now, there is no final official report on his condition. Here now, piece together the news items we have as they have reached us from Dallas, Texas. Within the hour, President Kennedy and Texas Governor John B. Connally were cut down by would-be assassins' bullets as they toured downtown Dallas in an open automobile. Representative Albert Thomas, Democrat of Texas, says he's been informed the president and Governor Connally were both still alive after having been shot in an assassination attempt. Thomas, standing outside the corridor of the emergency room in which both Mr. Kennedy and Connally were under treatment, said he's been told the president was still alive, but in very critical condition. The president, his limp body cradled in the arms of his wife, was rushed to Parkland Hospital. The governor also taken to Parkland. A Secret Service agent, Clint Hill, a man assigned to protect Mrs. Kennedy, said he's dead, as the president was lifted from the rear of a White House touring car, the famous bubble-top car which was sent to Dallas from Washington. He was rushed to an emergency room in the hospital. Other White House officials who were questioned about it say they were in doubt. The corridors of the hospital, of course, in pandemonium. The incident occurred just east of a triple underpass facing a park in downtown Dallas, Texas. Associated Press reporter Jack Bell reports 3 shots were fired as the presidential motorcade entered a triple underpass in Dallas that leads to the Stemmons Freeway. After the president was shot, the Secret Service waved the motorcade on at top speed to the nearby Parkland Hospital. Here in Washington, the White House press office said at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that it has nothing beyond press information on the shooting. Kennedy apparently was shot in the head. He fell face down in the back seat of his car. Blood was on his head. Mrs. Kennedy cried, "Oh no," and tried to hold up his head. Governor Connally remained half-seated in the car, slumped to the left. There was blood on his face and forehead. The president and the governor were rushed to the hospital as quickly as possible. Mr. Kennedy was to have made a speech at the Dallas Trade Mart, not far from the hospital. Reporters about 5 car lengths behind the chief executive heard what sounded like 3 bursts of gunfire. Secret Service agents in a follow-up car quickly unlimbered their automatic rifles and their pistols, but the damage apparently has been done or had been done. We switch now for a direct report to Robert McNeil, NBC News, Dallas.
President Kennedy was shot at today by a gunman from a building along the route as he drove through downtown Dallas. He has been rushed to hospital bleeding. Texas Senator Ralph Yarborough says the president is seriously wounded. Mrs. Kennedy, who was sitting beside him in the open car, was not hurt, but the governor of Texas, John Connally, was also reported wounded. As the shots rang out, 3 shots as the motorcade went by, people screamed and lay down on the grass. Police immediately fanned out over a wide area. They found several witnesses, including a small boy, who said he saw a man in the window of a building overlooking the parade route with a gun in his hand. President Kennedy is now in the Parkland Memorial Hospital. An accurate estimate of his condition has not been given. Congressman Yarborough of Texas says only that the president is seriously wounded. This is Robert McNeil, NBC News, at the Parkland Memorial Hospital in Dallas, Texas.
Here is a flash from Dallas. 2 priests who were with President Kennedy say he is dead of bullet wounds suffered in the assassination attempt today. I repeat, a flash from Dallas. 2 priests who were with President Kennedy say he is dead of bullet wounds. This is the latest information we have from Dallas. We are, of course, standing by to give you all available information as it comes to us. I will repeat with the greatest regret this flash. 2 priests who were with President Kennedy say he has died of bullet wounds. Now we join the NBC television network for the latest news.
White House Press Secretary Malcolm Kilduff has just announced that President Kennedy died at approximately 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, which is about 35 minutes ago.
After being shot at
by an
unknown assailant during a motorcade drive through downtown Dallas. The president died.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this program to bring you this bulletin from the WBAP newsroom. Here is David Daniel.
President Kennedy is dead.
President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now. The president is dead. Women here in shock. Some have fainted. Grown men, Secret Service men, standing by the emergency room, tears streaming down their face. There's only one word to describe the picture here, and that's grief, and much of it. It's official. As of just a few moments ago, the President of the United States is dead.
A good 10 seconds and try to give me as calm as you can, whatever you know.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
This is Sid Davis, and I'm at the Dallas Trademark, where President Kennedy was to make a major address this afternoon. The word is now being passed throughout the House that President Kennedy has been shot and has been taken to the Parkland Hospital near here. The only information we have at the present time is that the president was fired upon as his car approached a cloverleaf to go onto a freeway to come to the Dallas Trademark for his speech. According to reporters who were closer to the president, Mrs. Kennedy is supposed to have said, "My God." The reporters did notice that the president's body did fall limp. Governor John Connally of Texas and the president are in the hospital. Their conditions at this moment are unknown. This is Sid Davis reporting from the Dallas, This is Sid Davis reporting from the Dallas Trademark in Dallas, Texas.
This is Seattle. KXA. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this broadcast to bring you a bulletin from Associated Press. President Kennedy has been shot in Dallas, Texas. He was shot as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed the president. She cried, "Oh no," as the motorcade sped on. We'll repeat. A bulletin from Associated Press. President Kennedy has been shot in Dallas, Texas. He was shot as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed the president. Now, these are the only details we have. We will, of course, pass on further details as the news comes in. We don't know whether or not the shot was fatal. We don't know if the wound was serious. First reports say only the president has been shot. We continue the concert hall.
This KLIF bulletin from Dallas, 3 shots reportedly were fired at the motorcade of President Kennedy today near the downtown section. KLIF News is checking out the report. We will have further reports. Stay tuned. Here is a further report after we have just received word that shots had been fired at the Kennedy motorcade. We just talked with the police department. Here was that conversation.
Several persons arrived at Parkland, and no information is being given at this time.
But you did have reports of shots being fired.
We had reports, yes, sir.
KLIF News en route to Parkland Hospital to confirm the reports that someone had been wounded in the firing of shots in the Kennedy motorcade in downtown Dallas. Stay tuned to Cliff News. And now we take you to Joe Long in KLIF Mobile News Unit number 4 in downtown Dallas.
The latest information, and things are rather confused at this moment, shots definitely were fired at the presidential motorcade as it passed through downtown Dallas. All squads are converging code 3 in the area of Elm and Houston in downtown. There is a tentative description of the shooting suspect, a man, a white male, believed to be approximately 30 years old, reportedly armed with a .30 caliber rifle. How many shots were fired? How many persons, if any, were struck and wounded, we do not know yet. Very close-mouthed officials now clamping down on the entire story. We'll bring you what details are available just as quickly as they come into our possession. Joe Long, Fifth Mobile News Unit number 4, 1190 and out.
Sandra B. has her troubles. Listen.
A lot's been said about the wild teenage set. But wait till you see the scrapes my dad, Jimmy Stewart, gets into and take her, she's mine. Yikes, you just wouldn't believe it.
Well, that's our country fair weather news on a rainy day. 62 degrees here in the Chicagoland area at noontime. And our country fair weather news for today was brought to you by the Rainbow family of quality fertilizers.
Everything you grow grows better with Rainbow Premium Plant Food.
It's 19 minutes before 1 o'clock. This is Country Fair from WGN Radio in Chicago. Here is a bulletin from WGN News just handed me. President Kennedy has been shot and seriously wounded. Kennedy was shot at just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. A photographer on the scene said he saw blood on the president's head. I repeat this bulletin from WGN News. President Kennedy has been shot and seriously wounded. Kennedy was shot just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. A photographer on the scene said he saw blood on the president's head. This has been a bulletin from WGN News. WGN News will keep you posted on the latest developments as quickly as they are received.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
This is Alan Jackson reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York with a bulletin on an incident which just occurred in Dallas, Texas, where President Kennedy is visiting. President Kennedy and Governor John Connally of Texas were both hit by a would-be assassin's bullets as they toured downtown Dallas in an open automobile a short while ago. That is the latest word that has just come in from Dallas on United Press International. The Associated Press, in its first report, says that President Kennedy was shot just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy, who was riding with him, jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy and cried, "Oh, no." The motorcade sped on. Riding in the same car with the president for this particular motorcade was Governor and Mrs. John B. Connally, the governor of the state of Texas. According to the last report, both the president and the governor were hit by the bullets. And now one more ad has come in. The president, his limp body cradled in the arm of his wife, was rushed to Parkland Hospital. The governor was also taken to Parkland. Clint Hill, a Secret Service agent assigned to Mrs. Kennedy, escorted the president into the hospital, and we are awaiting further word on his condition. We will repeat these details as they have come into us here in our New York News headquarters. A would-be assassin fired at the presidential automobile in Dallas a short while ago, hitting both President Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally. President Kennedy was cradled in his wife's arms as the car sped off to Parkland Hospital in Dallas. Both the president and Governor Connally have been taken into the hospital for emergency treatment. An Associated Press photographer, James Altkin, said he saw blood on the president's head. He said he heard 2 shots but thought someone was shooting fireworks until he saw the blood on the president. The photographer, Altkin, said that he saw no one with a gun at the time. These are the details we have so far on this situation. We are awaiting further information that might come in by telephone or by the Press Association wires to our news headquarters here in New York. The president, as you know, was on a 3-day tour of the state of Texas. He flew down yesterday and was preparing to make an appearance and a speech today in Dallas before flying on to the state capital of Austin for an appearance this evening. We will repeat the information we have of now. Both President Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally have been wounded by an assassin's bullet. We do not know the condition of either man. Both have been taken to Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas. This is the latest we have at our CBS News headquarters in New York. We now resume our regularly scheduled program.
Bulletin, KXOL, Information 24 News Bulletin.
Here is a bulletin from Dallas. President Kennedy was shot today, just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy. She cried, "Oh no!" The motorcade sped on.
Police Chief Buddy McGill reported today 3 telephone threats were made against the life of President Kennedy before the president's arrival in Houston yesterday. McGill said, "We attribute these things to pranks, but it always scares us to death. I really have never stopped shaking the whole time he was here." Dick Mahan has further detail.
In Washington, Senator Edward Kennedy, the president's brother, was presiding over the Senate today when word came that the president had been shot. An aide informed him he rushed from the Senate chamber. Attorney General Robert Kennedy, the president's younger brother and closest advisor, was having lunch at home when word of his brother's shooting reached him. Kennedy's personal secretary said the attorney general was remaining in the Kennedy Hickory Hill estate in McLean, Virginia. Newsman carried the word to the House Speaker John McCormick at the luncheon table. "This is terrible," he said in an almost inaudible voice. "All I can say is that it is a terrible thing, and all Americans of all religions and faiths are praying for the president and Governor Conley." The Associated Press quotes 2 priests in Dallas as saying that Kennedy is dead. There is no confirmation. This is the Associated Press quoting 2 priests as saying President Kennedy is dead, repeating no confirmation of this information.
A flash on the Associated Press wire. 2 priests now say that President Kennedy is dead, and it happened in Dallas, Texas.
This urgent bulletin from Washington, government sources are quoted as saying President Kennedy is dead. This seems to be the official word.
Another crisp, clear, cool day throughout the Los Angeles area. The current temperature in Hollywood is 65 degrees and expected high of 68. In KNX radio time, exactly 10:30.
Arthur Godfrey time resumed. Johnny Parker in the orchestra.
Here is a news alert bulletin from the KNX Radio News Bureau. President Kennedy was shot today, just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy. She cried, "Oh no!" The motorcade kept going. Mrs. Kennedy was in the car with the president, repeating, President Kennedy was shot today, just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas, Texas. Further details as they are available in the KNX News Bureau.
This bulletin just into the KILT News Terminal. Dateline Dallas, 3 shots were fired at the motorcade of President Kennedy's day in downtown Dallas. No casualties are reported. The incident occurred near the county sheriff's office on Main Street. This other bulletin just in from Dallas. A sniper seriously wounded President Kennedy in downtown Dallas today, perhaps fatally. Further information follows immediately.
This is KILT in Houston, 16 minutes before 1 o'clock.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this program to bring you a bulletin from WCBS Radio News. The story, as it is just being handed to me, is datelined Dallas, Texas. It says, according to the United Press, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade today in downtown Dallas. The incident occurred near the county sheriff's office on Main Street, just east of an underpass, leading toward the Trade Mart in Dallas. The initial story says no casualties were reported, but we now have a flash. This is a flash dated Dallas, Texas. President Kennedy has been perhaps seriously wounded. According to this flash from the United Press International, I am now handed a bulletin from the Associated Press which says that President Kennedy was shot today just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy, according to the Associated Press. She cried, "Oh no!" the motorcade sped on. May I repeat the last bulletin from the Associated Press? President Kennedy was shot today just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas, Texas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy, crying, "Oh no," while the motorcade sped on.
At this hour, as you can see, there are small clusters of people gathered around small transistor radios trying to find out what is the latest regarding the reported shooting of the president. According to the information that we have at this hour, the attempted assassination took place at Elm and Houston Street as the president's party was preparing to go under the triple overpass and come out here to the Trade Mart. At this time, the announcement has not been made to the several thousand who are here in the Trade Mart as to what has happened. Details are still sketchy. The only thing that we have at this time is the report that the president is at Parkland Hospital, that Governor John Connally was also wounded, and that a Secret Service agent was killed. According to the best reports that we have at this time, there were only 3 shots fired, and apparently all of them struck true. This Trade Mart is approximately 1.25 miles from the point where the attempted assassination took place. The Trade Mart, this huge market hall, is located just to the northwest of the downtown business area. The president's motorcade had taken him from the airport down Lemon Avenue, one of the familiar thoroughfares here in Dallas, to Turtle Creek, down past the Democratic County headquarters, and on into the downtown area. The procession came up Main Street, one of the 3 principal thoroughfares in downtown Dallas, and as it was just beginning to leave the downtown area and come out here to this hall when the attempted assassination took place. The announcement was made to the crowd just a few minutes ago as to what had transpired. No report on the condition of the president as yet. Yes, Dick, do you have something?
There is an unconfirmed report, Eddie, that the president is in critical condition, that Governor Connally has gone to the operating room. This is an unconfirmed report.
That the president is in critical condition and that Governor Connally is now in the operating room. And also the fact that one of the Secret Service agents who was riding with the president was killed. Is that correct?
That is the report at this moment.
Dick, has there been any report as to whether or not the assassin was apprehended?
Nothing on the apprehension as yet. We still have that same street corner that you mentioned to go by. That's all so far.
Nothing other than the fact that at the intersection of Elm and Houston Streets, just west of the downtown area, is where the attempted assassination took place. There is a look of shocked disbelief on this crowd that has turned out for the president. Safety precautions here probably have never been greater. Precautions for the presidential visit went to extremes that have not been known here before. The report is that the attempted assassins, we now hear it was a man and a woman who fired the shots, were on the ledge of a building near the Houston Street underpass. Just from memory, that would have to be a building. Well, let's see, it could conceivably be either the county records building, the county courthouse. There is a building there, as my memory serves me, about an 8-story building, which houses a book depository, and then also the Union Terminal building is located just to the left or to the south of where the attempted assassination took place. The shots apparently came from the Texas School Depository, School Book Depository, which is a building about 8 floors in height that, yes. And who are you, sir?
I don't want to be identified.
We have just been told by a member of the staff at Parkland Hospital the president is dead. This is not. What is the governor's condition?
He's been shot in the chest.
In the chest. Do you have any report on that?
Don't know.
Thank you, sir. This is the report of a doctor who is on the staff of Parkland Hospital who was here for the luncheon. He says that the president is dead. We do not have a confirmation on this. We only pass it along as the word of a man who we would take to be a good source at this time. Governor Connally shot in the chest. He is in the operating room. We do not know what his condition is. But the report is that the president is dead. This is not confirmed. This is something that, this is something that the word just came to us a minute ago. The word we have is that President Kennedy is dead. This we do not know for a fact. The word we have is that he is dead, that he was shot by an assassin at the intersection of Elm and Houston Streets just as he was going into the underpass. The word we have is from a doctor on the staff of Parkland Hospital who says that it is true. He was in tears when he told me just a moment ago. This is still not officially confirmed, but as I say, the source would normally be a good one.
The Detroit news stations WWJ and WWJ-FM Detroit. Back in Detroit, this is John Hultman of WWJ News, taking a few moments out to bring you Michigan reaction to the death of President Kennedy. The state of Michigan, from Detroit to Cooper Harbor and from Governor Romney to the Capitol Guides, today mourned the assassination of President Kennedy. The reaction was almost identical from Cadillac Square in Detroit to the smallest hamlets. First unbelieving, then stunned, then sadness. Not since the death of President Roosevelt in 1945 has Michigan been so shocked. Some people were even seen weeping openly on city streets. On the order of Secretary of State James Hare, flags were flown at half-mast after news of the president's tragic death reached him. All state employees were given the day off, and Hare asked all those with religious feeling to go to church and express their grief in prayers. The situation was the same in Detroit, with Mayor Kavanaugh sending all city workers home when he heard of the president's assassination. The presidents of all the auto companies in Detroit were quick to express their sympathy and shock that such a crime had been committed. All news media were swamped first with calls asking for confirmation of the news, then with official statements of sympathy and grief. In Detroit, at one point, immediately after the news reached the city, you couldn't get a dial tone on any downtown phone. The circuits were so swamped. Shows and personal appearances were canceled in many towns throughout Michigan, and Governor Romney asked the Board of Trustees at Michigan State to cancel tomorrow's MSU-Illinois Big Ten deciding football game. However, the trustees declined, but League Commissioner Bill Reed said he would call off the game if the nation officially is in mourning tomorrow. Governor Romney is flying back to Michigan from Omaha, Nebraska. His plane is due to land at Lansing at about 9 o'clock tonight. That would be less than 2 hours from now. The Midwest Conference of Governors, which Romney was attending in Omaha, was canceled immediately when the news was heard. Late word from NBC and Morgan Beatty that Lee Oswald, the man who is in custody by the Dallas police in Dallas tonight, has denied any connection with shooting of either the policeman who was killed or with the death of President Kennedy and the shooting of Governor Connally. That late word coming in after 2 hours of questioning. Lee Oswald, the only suspect thus far, has denied any connection with either shooting.